Hello, and welcome to the most unusual episode that we ever had. My name is Tonia, and I am the producer of the Change Agent podcast, and I support Eric in our daily producing of the show. So today we will talk with Eric. Why did he start this podcast and how he sees the future of it? So let's go. The first question, and I think it's most interesting, why did you start this podcast?
Well, there's a bunch of reasons, I think. But probably the most prominent one is that there was a period when you gain a lot of experience. You know, there's lots of things that you do in your life. There's lots of trials and tribulations, lessons that you learned. And for me, I have lots of these. And so I felt like there was a way to share that. It would be through a podcast. I never did a podcast before. It was a very interesting experiment. In the very beginning, it was basic leadership principles, basic management principles, how to do scheduling, how to do leadership, basic leadership. But I found that as I did those things, that I gravitated more to how to be a leader. I started getting away from project management principles because everybody does this, and anyone can learn that. But it was more interesting to me to understand what makes you a better leader. And so I started investigating that. And if you look at the very beginning of the episodes, it is indicative of these things, where it's how to make a schedule. And then you start realizing that there's new episodes coming out, empathetic leadership, how to lead under conflict. And those are the things that really kind of interested me more. And what the primary reason was is because I felt like as I traveled through these experiences, there were plenty of people that just did not demonstrate those empathetic leadership traits. They did not understand how to lead people. And so I felt like we would get away from the structural part of it and start talking about the personal part of leadership, which I thought was really interesting.
It's nice. May I ask about the way, so you started with audio podcast and then you switched to video and you started inviting guests. So what was the reason and how you see this way?
Yeah, so there's two reasons behind that. One of them is you. So the primary reason. But yeah, we went through the first year. So we started in February of 2025. And then all the way up through December, we were doing just audio. And I was recording me talking about structural ideas of management and leadership. And it was an audio only media-based platform. But then after listening to some of the podcasts and understanding that it was a bit more intimate, rather, to have video, especially when YouTube and Spotify started doing video podcasts and people were kind of gravitating towards that. Happened to be aligned with the time that you and I talked about this in December of 25, that we would move to video. And it was a much better delivery because now you're talking about leadership and people can see expression on your face. You know, they can hear you as well in their AirPods, but to see you and to do that is a much better intimate relationship with the listener. Podcasts in general are going to be an intimate relationship because just as them in your ear and they're walking with you as you're doing the chores around the house and you're listening to it. But when you do the video, now it kind of demands attention from your eyes as well. Now you're paying attention to this thing. And that's where we started really shifting it to the personal side of leadership, because it was, now we're talking to you about how to be a good leader versus how to make a schedule.
Yeah. So what has been harder than you thought it would be?
That's a tough one. I think it is the trying to practice and understand and research our guests to know them. I think one of the common mistakes that happens more often than not is that a individual will get a guest. They may not research enough and they'll have questions that they think that they want to know. For us, I feel like the perspective that we want to take is that we want to be able to look at the guests, understand what their mission is, and ask the questions that we think listeners would want to ask. And I think that's really important because it keeps the focus from a selfish reason of interviewing an individual versus we're doing it for the guests that listen to us, to get a chance to get insights to people we bring on the show. And they're like, oh, I would love to know more about the leadership of human rights issues and how that works. And so you can kind of see the evolution. Hardest thing, though, is to really go in and research. And I'll say the other part is to switch between guests. There are times when we have guests that are really serious, that lead really serious and emotional issues. And then there are guests that lead in a different world. Maybe it's law enforcement, and it's not so emotional in the sense that you're not talking about the repatriation of children from Ukraine, but rather how to use improv to help you in your leadership to de-escalate a situation. Both of those have additional amount of emotional debt that occurs. And when you have those two types of interviews happening in the same space, one behind the other within an hour or two, it's difficult to shift from a serious tone to a less serious tone, or from a less serious tone to a serious tone. That became hard, especially if you did a serious one first and you're trying to let go a little bit to kind of de-escalate yourself from that, to detach so that you don't appear so emotional on the second one.
Yeah. Even for me, I'm not involved in the conversation itself, but when I listen these episodes that you just mentioned, it is very hard. And sometimes I want to cry because the topics are very serious and it's very hard.
Mhm.
I absolutely agree. Moving on. After all these conversations that you had already, what do you think great leaders have in common?
Every single one of them cares about their people, or cares about people in general. So there are guests that we've been blessed to have on the show. I want to name one of them is Valentina Schneider. She's an expert in empathetic leadership, and there are things about leadership and specifically empathy that I did not know existed. For example, cognitive versus affective. The cognitive empathy says, I understand that there's an issue and I understand you have a problem, but I don't connect to it personally. The affective one is that you're upset about something and I become upset because of it. So it's what Dr. Mays has said about before in his, that sometimes when you walk into a room and everything's escalated, you tend to escalate as well. So all the good leaders, from Dr. Mays to Alexandra Matvichuk to Dr. Schneider to Olga Rudnieva, all have this connection to empathy. The ability to understand that I need to take care of my people and understand where my people are coming from over anything else. There's never been a guest who said, I'm the best, or I even got the impression that they were the best because they had a good process, because they understood how to do schedules or supply chain or risk management. It was always empathy. It's always how you put yourselves in the shoes of the other people. And so I think that's a really common thread. And I think good leaders need to remember that it starts with one, understanding that your empathy matches to the other person, and that if they understand that you care, that goes a whole lot further than Eric being good at schedules or a leader being good at creating personnel management plans, something like this.
I was thinking, as you was mentioning, all our guests, like we have a huge range now. And when you have the situation when your prospective guest doesn't fit with the mission, so how do you handle the situation?
So originally, we started out probably like many podcasts where we didn't really have a filter for the guests. We were trying to find guests that matched generally what we were looking for, and we didn't have a filter for that. Everyone was qualified. As a podcast grows and you start to find your niche and you really start to find what you're looking to talk about, there will inadvertently be those who align less with you than you originally wanted to. So maybe we are now focused on consequential leadership in high stakes environments, but there are still very good leaders, executive coaches, diplomats, et cetera, that still have very valuable things. We, one, are not afraid to say no. In some cases, if there's a guest whose interest in what they want to have on the episode and what they want to have happen does not quite align with what we want, then we will just decline it. And in some cases, however, though, we can tell them that we have other methods to have them on the show. We can talk about other ways to connect to consequential leadership, and find those small threads that they may not have been thinking about in the beginning. But if someone completely does not align, then we simply wouldn't have them on as an active. We have an active and a passive methodology that we use. Those guests that we go after, and then those who come to us. Each one that we get as a passive that come to us and ask us to be on the show, we we need to find ways to make sure that there's a value-driven result for the listener. If it sounds like an advertisement, then we're probably not interested in that case. So it used to be that everybody did it, and now you've gotten to the point where you have a threshold of value that you need to meet, and you can't meet everyone. And we have plenty of people who are asking to be on the show, and you just can't do them all. So you have to be prepared to say no. So I think that's a valuable part of moving this podcast forward.
Yeah. Is it an easy task to say no?
It is now. In the beginning, it was very difficult. I think in the beginning, it's scary to say no, especially when you are a podcast that's trying to get started and you don't want to say no because you want every single experience. You want every single one because you don't know if it's valuable or not. You believe it's all valuable, and it all is. But you have to remember we have a specific strategy that we're trying to nail down. We're only 6 months old in the video space. And with that said, it really is important that we get that strategy, we nail it down, and we continue with that. And so in the beginning, it was very scary because you don't want to say no. But now I won't say it's easy, but it's reasonable.
Yeah.
And it's acceptable to say no. So to keep the message focused and strong, then we just have to be able to say that.
And the next one, where do you want this show to go in 2 years?
So the next 2 years, I think I want to be in a place where we are respected as, not to sound corny, but an agent of change, right? We do this because we try to bring the impacts of consequential leadership to the front, to have everyone understand that there's a big battle that's going on internally amongst leaders themselves and amongst organizations to try to get their mission accomplished. So in these situations, they need a voice. And sometimes they don't have time to make that voice on their own. We want to be the ones who, in 2 years, when they say, oh yeah, I heard about the challenges of leading an organization in a humanitarian crisis, repatriation of children, human rights violations, through the Change Agent podcast. And I want it to be synonymous with that type of leadership. And that's why I think the focus of what we're trying to do is really important, that we stay on track with that. And then in 2 years, we get to the point. I don't think it's ever a goal for us to be 1 million followers. I don't think it's important for us. I mean, if that happens, it happens. But I think it's important that we are more recognized for the highlighting of consequential issues than anything else. I want us to be recognized that when people hear the Change Agent podcast, they said that's a podcast that talks about serious things. And I think that's the impression of that. Someone said, if you're little long enough, you'll be big soon enough. That all happens when you have quality. And I think that's where in the next 2 years, it's going to be focused on being a quality podcast, focused on consequential leadership, being true to the people who ask us to tell the story. And that's where I want it to go. I think it'll be a great thing. I think we're already on the way, and you can't fault us for that. So
I love it, to be the voice.
Mm-hmm.
This one is amazing.
Yeah.
Why does this podcast matter to you personally?
I've had personal experiences where leadership was really horrible. And it could be 1 or 2 instances in your entire professional career where you could get 1 bad leader or 2 bad leaders, and they make a massive impact. In fact, I probably remember the worst leaders I've had much faster in my mind when I think about the experiences I've had in leadership than I do the good ones. Because of that, it tells me how important good leadership is. And that's why I think it's just really important that we get out in front of that, and we try to make sure that we bring good leadership back around and have people understand that.
To create an episode, it's not 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So normally it takes us, I don't know, around 40 hours probably for 1 episode, to find the person, to do the setup, to record, to create questions, to all this huge amount of work behind, and to keep going every day, day by day, during more than 1 year. So what motivates you? So how do you see it? Why you should continue, or why we should continue this?
Mm-hmm. I have a 2-part answer for that. The first one would be that It's the commitment to the mission, what we're trying to achieve, to be the voice of those who need it, regardless of who they are, right? An important voice. So just that alone allows us to wake up in the morning or in the afternoon and get to work. The second one is that I would, just like you, I want this to be the best podcast out there. We have lots of examples from the Diary of a CEO who made it big, but after 4 years, but he kept at it, right? And for me personally, I love this idea that it was just simply a microphone and a computer, right? And that's what a podcast could. That's what it is. It could be that simple. But as we move into videos and we start doing different things, we realize that each person's story is unique. Each organization has a unique mission. Each time we have a new guest, it becomes a whole new palette of colors, a whole new canvas to paint this idea of what the podcast could deliver. That's why, for good or bad, the podcasts can be different depending on which one you watch. Some of ours happen to be with different lighting. That's mostly my fault. Some of them can be with different tones of voice. Some of them can be with different interactions with the guest. Some of them have different introductions. Some have more music. Some have more video. And so each one's a different canvas. And each time we get a new guest, it's just exciting to me to think this is a whole new thing. We're starting all over again every single time. And I think that, we do have, like you said in the beginning, like it takes a long time. We do have things that we do repetitive processes on, because, like if it's guest research, if it's the questions generation, if it's the one sheet delivery, those conversations that are pre-recorded for the individuals so that we can talk and have a relationship with our guests before an actual recording. Those things are all repetitive, and we do those things through the workflow. But there are unique moments in those that we can inject this uniqueness to say that we're going to make this different than other podcasts that we've done through these things, whatever it is. And so I think it's just neat for me to get a new guest, to look at them and go, I never thought about talking to someone about this topic.
Yeah.
And now I get to come up with unique questions I never thought I would ask in ways I didn't think I would ask them. And this whole podcast that we'll create with this new guest will be different than the other ones we've done before. And that's really exciting, because I think too often podcasters tend to make it so similar for every single episode that if you've seen one, you've seen them all. And that's not what I want to do here, right? I want us to be able to say, you never know what you're going to get. They're going to interview someone who, we've got lots of people that we've got on the docket to try to get on the show. And should they come and accept, and some of them have, take Alexandra Matvichuk, for example, that was a very different interview than any of the ones I've ever done. Simon Cardinal had a different one. Schneider had a different one. Dr. Schneider, Dr. Mays has a different one. And so I love the idea that you can come to the podcast and know that you're going to get consequential information on something very important, but you never know how it's going to taste.
Yeah.
And that's really interesting to me.
Nice. And if we would imagine that someone will listen only this episode. So now I should do a disclaimer. Please follow us on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, subscribe, and you will see all our new episodes. So let's imagine that someone will see only this episode that we are recording now. What would be the main takeaway you want them to receive, to have?
We tell the truth. We have empathy, and we don't try to sugarcoat anything. I think there are many podcasts that try to put their message on top of the guest message. We give this platform to the guests to give us their message, to get the message out. And we try to amplify that. And we will always be real about this. Any episode that we think is worth releasing is worth releasing. And we also want people to know that they need to interact with us. The conversations that we have with our guests are two-way. We ask a question, they provide an answer. We do a response. We have a transition to the next question. Those are all structural things that we do in the podcast. The best part about podcasting and video podcasting and interviews are the things that happen after that. And we want more discussions in the comments. We want more discussions to us through the website or wherever it is that they can find us. That says we would like an interview about X, Y, and Z, because there are things that we're coming up with that are internal. But if we had external inputs of what we could be doing podcasts about, it would be perfect. And I think this is what we're doing today is a really good impetus to get that to happen, right? But I think that if a listener is like, why should I pick you? It's because we pick the real hard situations. We try to get into the emotional reason why a leader continues to press on the mission that they do. It's difficult to think about the mission that Olga does, or that Alexandra does, or that Miriam Lambert does. And how do they do it? How do they do it every day? We do the podcast. This is, compared to what they do, it's easy. To wake up every day and have to do repatriation of children or do human rights violations investigations to children is just very difficult. And I want to know how they maintain that strength. And so each episode will be those things. And I think if you want something that's going to give you insight into how leaders do things internally and how they process and maintain an organization with the pressure that they have, with a real thread of integrity and how we ask the questions and how we interview them, then you've found the right spot. And we do it naturally. I mean, I think we have a very good chemistry. We have the same convictions about what we want to see, and we have the professionalism to understand that if I'm not doing something correctly, you can help fix that, and likewise the other way around. And I think that that's what makes this work.
Thank you. So if you see something in common with what you are doing already and with our mission, please reach out to us, and you can be a guest on our show. I think it's an amazing opportunity to be heard and to be voiced.
Absolutely. And that, Tonia, I want to thank you for all that you do as well. I mean, people need to remember that they see a face in the video. There's a whole ton of other things that happen behind the scenes. And for me to talk about you for a minute is really important, because I don't think the outside the website, they don't see you. And so the true mark of a good podcast or just a good organization in general is to recognize that there's more than one individual. A lot of times the organizations will have loud leaders. For me, you see my face in the interview, you see my face on the video, you hear my voice in the audio, but we have an amazing producer who finds people, who says, this is the type of podcast interview I think you could have with this individual, or even better and even harder, this is why you should not have this individual. Again, it's the ability to say no on both ends. And I think, like I've told her before, and I'll tell you, the audience, is that in 2025, in February, when I started, all the way up through December, it was audio only with no clear direction. And it wasn't until Christmas that we decided, hey, this thing could be a much more impactful than if you went this direction. And each time you do an episode, you grow a little bit. You move the needle just a tad, and you just keep doing this compass bit until you get to the point where you're dead north. And we're getting there, right? We've been at it for 4 months now, and we've already accomplished Nobel Peace Prize laureates on the show. I think that's impressive. And I think that that's a testament to the work that you do and the way that you provide the direction for us to go. I wouldn't know it all on my own. If I had, I would have done it between February and December. And so thank you for getting us here, and where we'll be at in 2 years will be because of it. So
I'm happy. I'm happy to be here, and really, it is my pleasure and honor to do what we are doing.
Amazing.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you for watching us, and please subscribe and follow all our social media and YouTube, and see you later. Thank you. Bye.